What's up, YouTube, and welcome to another episode of Finance and Freedom. My name is Todd, and today we're going to talk about how to substantially supplement your income or maybe even retire early. Let's get into it. I'm sure most of you have heard the saying that it takes money to make money, and I don't actually believe in that. There are tons of ways that you can get ahead in life by starting with nothing. However, this is one of those times that it actually kind of applies. The more money that you have to invest or have in your investment account, the more you're going to be able to make with this strategy. All right, to start out, you're going to take whatever investment platform you use and you're going to apply to have margin activated in your account. So this usually gets approved within the first day, but it can take a couple days depending on the investment platform that you're using. You don't actually have to use margin for this strategy, but I love the fact that I can make additional income without paying any interest. Additionally, if you use margin, you can continue to have your own money invested in the stocks that you love and have them keep on earning while using margin interest-free to make even more. Another thing to note is that you get paid as soon as you sell the put. So this gives you an extra amount of money to invest in those stocks that you love, which brings compounding interest to a whole new level. Before we go any further, let's talk about what margin actually is. It's a loan given to you by your investment company that's backed by the investments that you currently have. The more investments that you have, the bigger the loan they're actually willing to give you. Now, after you apply for margin, you don't automatically start paying interest, which is great, but you will be able to see how much is available to you. So it doesn't really matter what trading platform you use, but I personally really like Robinhood. Quick FYI, I'm not sponsored by them or anything, I just really like their product. The platform is really intuitive and easy to use and has the lowest margin rates out of any company by a long shot. I have both Charles Schwab and Robinhood, and I much prefer Robinhood. Charles Schwab, the margin rate's around 10%. Robinhood is about 5%. That's a pretty substantial difference. All right, step one is now complete. You have margin activated on your account. Well, now what? Well, we're going to start selling options. Now, the option strategy that we're going to focus on today is called selling puts. Now, I know this is going to sound a little scary, but trust me, it really isn't that difficult. You'll probably have to sign up for the ability to trade options as well, just like you did with your margin. But just like applying for margin, it's pretty easy and doesn't take much time or effort other than answering a few questions and clicking your mouse a few times. All right, we now have margin and the ability to sell puts. So what is selling a put? Well, to make it easy, you're basically selling an IOU. You're saying, hey, I promise I will buy 100 shares of your company if the price drops to whatever you choose. If the price doesn't drop to your desired price, you don't have to buy the 100 shares and you get to keep the money. Here's an analogy that will hopefully make things a little bit easier. You walk into a store and you see 100 socks that you really want to buy. You start heading for the checkout, but the manager stops you and says, hey, I'll give you $5 if you wait for those socks to go on sale. If they don't go on sale, you get to keep the $5. But if they do go on sale, you have to promise to buy the socks. What's cool about this is that if the socks don't actually go on sale, you can keep that $5 and keep on going back to the store and making that same deal over and over and over again and just pocketing the $5. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why would anybody give me $5 to wait for it to go on sale? Well, in order to get that $5, you have to pick a sale price that you're willing to buy them at. Let's say that price is $95. If the socks go down to $90, you're still obligated to buy them for $95. Now, what's cool about this is you were already wanting those socks anyway, and you're willing to pay $100. So $95 is still a great deal. This is obviously a simplification of the whole process, but I think it helps to wrap your mind around the whole process and what's actually going on. So let's hop on Robinhood right now and see just how to do it and how easy it actually is. This process is going to look a little bit different depending on the platform that you're using, but the idea and the information available are still going to be the same. Okay, so you can see here that I've pulled up Coinbase as a good option, or as an option for selling a put. And so what we're going to do is we're going to come over here to Trade Coin Options. Now it's going to automatically select buy and call. Do not do that. In fact, that's going to change your strategy completely. So we're going to click on sell and put. Now, what's cool is you set the expiration date. So you tell the manager, hey, if it doesn't go on sale by this point, then I'm done. And so you can actually set that time period anywhere between 3 days or even up to a year out, actually even more than a year out. We've got 829 days out. And what's cool about that is it's a completely different strategy known as leaps strategy. And you can go, very far out, and what's cool is you can set that sale price to be much lower, or they call it the strike price. You can set the strike price to be much lower, which actually makes it a lot safer for you. One thing that I don't care for about the leaps strategy is if that stock that you choose doesn't have a whole lot of movement, either up or down, your money can get locked up into that put for an extended period of time. And so, like I said, if there's not a whole lot of movement, you're locking up your money for an extended period of time. I don't really care for that. So I typically stick with about a week long. We're gonna go with 3 days right now and see what those numbers look like. So you can see currently the share price is at $340.80. Now, if we wanted to set our strike price at $342.50, we would get $10 per share. Now, like I said before, you're obligating yourself to buy 100 shares. So that means that you got to move this decimal point over 2 places. So that means they are willing to give you $1,000 in order to sell this put. Now, that seems like a pretty great deal. However, I think they're factoring the fact that there's a high likelihood that it could drop to $342.50 and you will get assigned these 100 shares. So that's something to keep in mind. But what's cool is, like I said, you can select which price you want. So if you're saying, hey, I'm willing to buy at $335, well, now you would be given $690 in order to sell this put. And like I said before, you get paid that $690 immediately as soon as you sell that put. So that's pretty awesome. So here's another critical aspect that you want to use whenever you're selling puts. Is say we want to go to the $330 price range. Well, you click on that right there, and it shows you a bunch of numbers. And I realize it's pretty confusing if you look at all the numbers, but I'm gonna have you just look at one to make this easier. We're gonna look at the delta. And so the delta is basically the percentage chance that you're going to get assigned those 100 shares, or you're going to have to buy those 100 shares. And so on this one right now at $330, there is a 31% chance, or 31.4% chance, that you're actually going to get assigned on this. Now, I typically like to stick around to the 30% range, and so maybe I'd go down one more notch on this one. So let's go down to 327 and see what that looks like. Okay, so at 327, we're at a 28% delta, which means a 28% chance that I would get assigned that. That's actually right around where I would like to be. I could honestly go with either one of them and be fine. I would probably go for the 327 just to be a little bit more on the safe side. And so I would be given $450. Like I said, the $4.50 times 100, $450 in order to buy this at $327.50, and this expires in 3 days. And so on Monday of next week, I could make the same deal over and over and over again, 28% chance that I get assigned, and that means that I get a 72% chance that I just get to pocket that money and do it all over again the next week. It really is that easy. All right, so one thing that I'm looking for whenever I'm looking for a stock that I want to potentially sell a put on is I want to look at the chart. And so let's go back to the chart real fast. And you want to see, let's look at the last year. Okay, well that's a little bit more volatile than I was expecting, but basically you want to see something that's going from the bottom left to the top right. Now, it did eventually get there, a lot of zigzags in between, and so maybe this is going to be more of a volatile stock than you prefer to have. Typically speaking, you want to see something bottom left to top right, so that way, even if you do end up getting assigned to those shares or you have to buy those 100 shares, it's still over the course of a long time going to go up and you're not going to lose your money. So even if you have this big downturn, you're going to be safe in the long run. So this one, like I said, this one has a lot of implied volatility, or IV, and typically speaking, you get paid a lot more to sell puts on stocks that have a high IV. And so this is a prime example of one of those stocks that pays out really well, but it also has a high probability that you're going to end up getting assigned to those stocks. So that's just one thing that you have to take in consideration. I'm not saying that this would be a bad one to sell a put on, but like I said, there's a high likelihood that you're going to end up owning 100 shares of Coinbase before it's all said and done. So that is one thing to take into consideration. So really, any of the Magnificent Seven stocks are going to be really good. They're going to show that chart, like I was saying, from the bottom left to the top right. And those include Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, which is Google, Meta, Nvidia, and Tesla. All of those, like I said, are going to be really good ones to buy into. Tesla actually has a lot of implied volatility as well, and you'll get paid a decent amount for those puts. So that's another one to consider. All right, so another thing that you're going to want to look at whenever you're selling a put, or this is a more advanced strategy. And so what we're going to do is we're going to click on the Advanced tab over here. Now, mine, since I've used it before, it automatically pops up, but you're looking for the Bollinger Bands. And so what we're going to do is you can see Bull 20 over here in the bottom left, or just the left-hand side. And if it isn't on, you can click on the eyeball and it will turn them on. So you can see now it's turned on. Now what we're looking for on the Bollinger Bands is you want to see the stock near the bottom, and that's the optimal time to sell a put, because you know that the stock has a higher chance of going up. And so what this is it's basically a 20-day moving average and shows where it's bouncing in between. And so if you look at the chart here, anytime it nears the top, it's going to pop back down. And so you can see, oh, it got to the top and it pops back down, and gets to the top, pops back down. And you'll see that every once in a while it'll come out of the Bollinger Band and then it comes right back down. Same thing is true on the inverse, is you can see every time it gets to the bottom, it wants to pop back up. Once it gets to the bottom, it wants to pop back up. And so one thing when you're selling puts is, you know that once you're getting close to the bottom of the Bollinger Band, it's unlikely that it's going to go much further. And so selling whenever it's close to the bottom is actually a really good strategy if you don't want to get assigned to those 100 shares. Right now, we're pretty centered up in the Bollinger Band. I'm not saying that this is a bad time to sell a put. It's pretty neutral. It could go either way at this point. Now, another thing that I like to look for is I want to see the stock go down in price, especially for the day. And so if you look at Coinbase for the day, we're down 4.36% for the day. Now, what's nice about that, and this is a more simplistic strategy than using the Bollinger Bands, but whenever it's gone down 4.36%, it's more likely that it's going to recover as opposed to go down. And if it does continue going down, it's not going to be as extreme as if it was already shooting up high. And so it's already done the majority of its losses. And so if the stock has gone down, it is a better opportunity to sell a put than if the stock has gone up. Just because, like I said, there's a higher likelihood that the stock is going to go down if it is already on the rise, or on the inverse of that, it's more likely that it's going to go up if you've had a down day. At this point, I'm sure you're thinking to yourself, how is the margin interest free? Well, since you didn't actually buy the stocks, the margin that you used doesn't actually start accruing any interest until the stock goes on sale or you get assigned to those stocks and you're forced to buy them. So I mentioned before, with my strategy, we're looking at about 70% of the time, I just get to pocket the money and do the same thing the following week. Now, if you do have to buy the 100 shares, don't worry about it. As long as you picked a good stock or ETF, it will almost definitely go back up in price, and you can sell those 100 shares for more than what you bought them for. Now, there's another strategy that comes into play when you're selling these stocks, and that's called selling a covered call. Now, I'm not going to go into that for today because this video is already getting on the long side, but it's the final tool that you need in your tool bag to make some huge financial gains. Now, before I finish up today, I think it's important to know that this strategy, just like others, or any other form of investment, comes with risks. If the market drops 20% and you've used too much of your margin, you can actually get stuck with what's called a margin call. This can force you into selling your stocks at a huge loss. So be sure to do your research and trade responsibly. I'm going to release a video here in the near future to discuss the other half of the strategy called selling covered calls. So be sure to like and subscribe down below so you don't miss that video. It really does help me out when you hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.